Okay, guys, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehon. I'm with Swiftfire. Super excited tonight because we have someone really cool that I know you guys are really super enjoy. Someone that I met about a year ago. I met him and his wife in a SETI, actually taking his course on remote viewing, and really felt connected to him. One of the things that I loved about him and his wife is just their authenticity, their heart connection, their attention to integrity and to details, which is definitely a good thing if you're in the job that he's in. And they're just fun. They were funny and cute. They're a cute, loving couple, and we reconnected again just recently because I was like, I saw he's doing another class, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a remote class that can be done online, remote. You don't even have to travel and all this stuff right now. So I was like, I want everyone in the whole world to know about this and to be able to connect. So thank you, John, for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And so John is an author, and he has a book called The Time Before Secret Words. And I actually got the book before I went to go see you, John. And I found out about you because I watched a documentary on Amazon, and it was the Spies, what is it? The Third Eye Spies video, documentary with Russell Targ. And one thing kind of, you hit something, you watch it, and then, I don't know, something else came rolled in, and I was like, I got to know more about this. And that's how I found you. And then you happened to be at a SETI, and that was like also on my bucket list. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can like do all these things and learn and get educated too, all at the same time. So can you give us a little of your background for those people who are wanting to know you guys a little bit more, and even how you got into this? And then we'll go into what is remote viewing or remote viewing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, remote viewing, well, it was declassified in 1995, and it was not long after that that I got involved in it. I wasn't part of the military or anything like that. I was just a person who was obsessed with the idea of it. I wasn't interested in psychic stuff, though, not at all. Before that, no, not at all. I was doing Zen meditation. I lived in a Zen, a Zen center for a while. And I was more focused on that side, but there was something about, when you hear the story from, I think it was Ted Koppel, Nightline, 1995, he had this TV show, and he started speaking of this government program that was just declassified where psychics were turned into spies, and they used this special technology. And the technology is really just the methodology that you do on paper, but they call it a technology. And I heard that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. It's like, if I had a metal plate in my head, it would be heating up. It was intense. I'm like, I got to figure this thing out, whatever it is. So I started to find people here and there online. I mean, there wasn't much online back then, but there were forums, and they were talking about it, and some people had learned it already. So I started to kind of cobble together how to do it. I didn't have the money. I mean, it was so expensive to learn back then. I think it was, in the realm of $3,000 to $6,000. I know. To learn how to do this. So I didn't have the money to do it. And I was a little bit sketched out about learning from an ex-military intelligence trainer. And I basically taught myself, and then I got formal training not long after that by a person who was not in the military, a person named Prudence Calabrese. And I guess that I had some kind of skill because I was pretty much not long after that pulled into a think tank and working as a paid professional remote viewer. And I did that for years, remote viewing. You know how these sessions go, right? I mean, I was remote viewing about 2 to 3 sessions per day, 5 days a week. It was my job, and spending about 2 hours per session, just remote viewing constantly. And when you remote view that much, it really changes the structure of your brain. You know, I
Yep.
mean, you remember from the class, it's intense. I mean, it really, like, your whole brain is firing neurons, you know, it creates new connections that you didn't have before. As well, it increases creativity like you wouldn't believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for years, and then I eventually co-ran the think tank as the director of operations. And we were working with we worked with people in intelligence. We would occasionally have requests that were very odd, and we were like always a little sketched out about it because on the one hand, we were working counter-terror, for instance, for the FBI.
Wow.
And on the other hand, there was a covert group who was intent on shutting us down. So we had these sort of like two polar opposite things going on where, you know, we were working on things and helping, we thought, to a certain degree with these agencies. But on the other side, there was this one agency that just wanted us gone and out. And it really gave me this inside picture on how these agencies fight with each other and how some might be pretty good, okay, and others might not be okay. They're not the same institution. So we also worked with corporations. You know, it was like at that point in time, there was this Sony news article on Sony came out, and it was basically said that Sony was using remote viewers to kind of look at and then see if they can patent future technologies, which is a really interesting area of remote viewing and technology. So we were probably the only like think tank out there that was public doing remote viewing stuff. And, you know, we had household names calling us to figure out how they could use it because, in the technology sector, because they didn't want to be left in the dark. So we did this for a long time. It was my whole world back then. It was just constant, either weird remote viewing projects or working for corporate stuff. And then on the other side of it, it was always trying to be aware of who it is that's behind my back because of this harassment that was going on, even death threats to shut us down. Eventually what happened on that front was probably 2005-06 timeframe. In that zone, they started to go after our remote viewers. And the way we work as remote viewers is that we work in teams because it just makes it creates a situation where the data is extremely accurate. If you have multiple remote viewers, all blind, they don't know what they're looking at, they're following the typical methodology there, and you have multiple remote viewers, then you get their data on a specific question, and then you cross-correlate the points in order to build the picture of what's going on or what you want to know about. And that makes it extremely, extremely accurate. And our remote viewers were, they're all decentralized. We weren't working in one location. So they started to go after them a bit. And the IRS came in and took our funds. We had an investor, and eventually we just had to shut it down. After that, after 9/11 happened, which of course is not what people think it is. Well, the masses, the public, the ones that listen to mainstream media, we were asked after 9/11 to work counter-terror, and we're talking about people who are like mid-level managers, people who are patriotic, people who believe that we are truly under attack by this foreign enemy, right? And so we worked that for a while, trying to understand what sort of future attacks would happen next and give them information so they could potentially stop them from happening. So one thing that happened, which was really bizarre, was that it somehow leaked to the media that, I was like, this one day, it's like, I see a news article and it says, psychic spies hunting for bin Laden. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Let me check that article out. Click. I'm going, oh shit, it's my name. Like, no, 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 no. So somebody had leaked it to the media. And
Wow.
and oh, what was really bizarre was that we weren't hunting for bin Laden. That was not something that we wanted to do. We were asked to do it, but we said no, thank you. We didn't want to have errant bombs or whatever dropped on somebody that, you know, we potentially, you know, pointed to. So, you know, somebody innocent. So we decided instead to look at future terrorist attacks. And when this leaked to the press, what happened was we started to get threatened on the other side by Al Qaeda. So,
Oh crap.
right. So at that point in time, it was like, okay, so they're threatening us. The handler that we had with the FBI even said, "You guys are on a hit list." So we've got that, right? And then on the other side of it, we've got this other intelligence agency that's coming after us, which is probably the same as Al Qaeda, to tell you the truth, and, you know, threatening our lives. So it was a really, really bizarre situation, and I didn't like it at all. I did not like this press situation. It was terrible, because the only thing that I wanted to do was just keep my head down and work, because I just love the work. So what happened was we got asked to go on television shows like CBS Sunday Morning and Prime Time and those types of shows. And I did a couple of them, you know, demonstrating remote viewing back, gosh, this, you know, was 2001, 2002 timeframe. And then after we shut down, you know, it was nice to have a little bit of a rest, but I had this, you know, voice in the back of my head, just like, you have to keep doing this. You have to keep doing this. And you need to move it, you know, more into the zone of showing people what they're capable of. Mm-hmm. And so with the media background, I started to go into working with National Geographic and working with a producer there. We did a lot of stuff. We filmed a lot of stuff for Nat Geo. And I did a television show that went to air that was about me hunting a treasure. Yeah, it was lame and ridiculous. It's these, you know, these typical sort of reality follow you around shows that don't actually ever get anywhere, because you got this massive camera crew following you everywhere and filming everything you do. Then I shifted into other things, like I go on Ancient Aliens, I'll go on The Unexplained with William Shatner, I'll do Travel Channel stuff. And just kind of build the voice of remote viewing to get people interested in doing it. A lot of what I do, a lot of what I'm really excited about doing are expeditions myself, and filming those expeditions, doing documentaries on them, because remote viewing can lead you to discoveries, for instance, archaeological discoveries, fascinating and interesting things that you can uncover yourself and present to the public. So I've been working in that vein, filming that type of stuff, working with producers on developing something. You know, I'm not into Hollywood. It's not my cup of tea. I still work with those types of people. It's a very crafted entertainment world, as opposed to a reality world. And you don't have the freedom there to truly show people what's going on, good and bad. And they often want you to just make stuff up. And it doesn't work for me. I don't like it. So it's one of those things where it takes money, it takes time, it takes effort, but I'm able to go out when I can. And for instance, remote view and explore ancient sites that are in California, you know, because there are a ton of them, ton of stuff that people just don't know about, as well as sites like Mount Shasta. You know, what's going on there? Why do you have strange phenomena there? What happened to some of the people that have disappeared there? You know, I mean, the J.C. Brown story, if you know that one, is just absolutely fascinating, and following that line of the, you know, lost cave full of giant mummies. You know, we on some of these investigations, we come very, very close to finding some of this stuff. I mean, it just takes this like extra little effort to push over this hump, especially with time, effort, and money, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's just been this like roller coaster of discovery and fascinating things that you come across, you know. Going after locations of high strangeness as well is one of those, you know, one of the loves that I have, and try to understand how to capture some of this phenomena on film, and, you know, have an experience yourself. You know, when you remote view, see, if you remote view something that is otherworldly or alien,
Off planet.
yeah, exactly. You know, these things that have broader awarenesses can take notice of you when you remote view them, and it could end up in a visit. And that's a really fascinating side of remote viewing, you know. I know you, I think you got tasked on some weird stuff in that.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We had a few things. Yeah. You know, and a couple of things when, you know, we were in teams also, and, you know, I've been trained through like lie detection, body language. I've trained with the best, done a lot with this guy named John Jackson, who did a lot on just, you know, reading biofields and or energy to, you know, I guess think, connect with God's source to know what people are thinking or what's on their minds.
Right.
Not for the sake of like, you know, hurting anyone or anything like that, but just to be able to encourage them about the future and speak, you know, positive things in their lives, and, you know, use it as a positive. But remote viewing, because of the movie that I saw, and also because of studying a guy named Adam, who was a 16-year-old who was remote viewing a guy who was an astronaut in space and needed medical help and was dealing with cancer. Actually, he wasn't just remote viewing, but he was actually remote healing, using like just imagination, the word imagination, or pretending to as if it happened. And I choose to remember if the astronaut was in space the whole time it happened, or sometimes part-time in Florida, but he was doing remote healing. And this is like, I mean, he's a kid, and there's like tons of people who are doing remote healings.
Right.
And, but when we were doing these team things and you were putting us on different tasks, we were just given a number for the task. We didn't know anything about the scenario, which is really interesting because it takes off everything that we can make up on our own as an idea of what this is going to be about. And I was blown away by how easy it was to do. And with each one that we got right, it just gave me more confidence to trust the next time and the next time and the next time. And just right, the first thing that came to my mind, and I was actually just interviewed Mary Rodwell a couple days ago. And she was talking about tapping into that too. And I just got it sitting here with you right now. She said, you got to shut down the left side and really just the first thing that comes to your mind, because the logic will try to talk you out of it. And then I'm like thinking, oh my God, right hemisphere is your whole thing. That's what your website is and everything. I was like, duh, why did I not connect that before? But can you talk a little bit about that? A little, you know, about just that first gut feeling?
Totally. It's like, okay, so as humans, we just want to make meaning out of everything. And we have words for everything around us. Words, concepts. We live in metaphors and simile. We live in that realm, and we want meaning and we want stories. And those are the realm of the thinking mind. That's like the AM radio, you know, how your brain is like constantly talking about this and that and this and that. So that would be more the left brain side. When you remote view, what you're doing is you're stepping off into a different place inside of yourself, and not so much utilizing that. I mean, you have a structure that you work through with remote viewing. So the left brain is working the structure. So it keeps it a little bit busy. And that's the idea, you know, part of the idea behind it. Keeps it a little bit busy. while your right brain can allow things to slip through. And it's in all my years I've been teaching, it's really difficult for people to let go of just the way they've been enacting with the world around them, with concepts and words. But it's actually extremely easy when you understand how to do it. The remote viewing methodology and protocol is only a structure. It's only a structure to do it within. It doesn't actually teach you how to let go of that left brain babbling nonsense, right? It doesn't teach you how to do that. You have to teach yourself how to do that. And you have to understand the difference in feeling from the thinking part to the open feeling and gathering information part. They're two totally different things. And you can, in fact, once you step outside of that left brain and you are remote viewing something, even if you know what it is that you're remote viewing, you actually forget what it is that you're remote viewing because you're in a different sensory zone, right? Because you're feeling, you're going inside of your body to start with, and you're exploring the sensations, right? That's usually the first place we start, exploring the sensations that are happening in your body. And this starts to engage your five senses, where you'll smell things, you'll start to hear things. You can even taste things. You can close your eyes and imagery will pop up that is absolutely relevant to it. So remote viewing has the ability to kind of expand that zone out. So it is almost like a constant first thing is coming up, right? Like what you were saying, how Mary Rodwell was saying, the first thing is usually what it is. It creates a situation where it's this constant first thing that's coming up, and you're just putting the information out and you're trying not to create a story about it. The way remote viewing started, if people don't know, it was back in early 1970s, late 1960s, where the Soviets were developing some type of psychic team, right, to spy. And, they were actually a little bit more interested in the psychotronic side, like how do you affect people with it, get information, but also destroy their minds. And the CIA got word of that. So they started working with Stanford Research Institute in Menlo Park, San Francisco, in order well, they wanted to see first if this was real, could this happen? Because at that time, no researcher of psychic functioning believed that you could create this repeatable method to get good information. Because, psychics can be very hit or miss. One moment they can be really like on it. The next moment they could just be dry and not on it at all. And so that was their first task, to try to understand, how do you do it? And how do you ask a psychic to give you information on something without telling them what that something is? And that's where the thinking mind comes in. Because if I asked you to remote view like the Hindenburg disaster or something like that right now, and told you remote view that, you're going to come up with a story, news articles, the old video, et cetera, et cetera. And so they had to figure out a method to ask the psychic without asking them. And that came down to basically the coordinate method, where they would just grab random coordinates of the earth and give it to somebody, and then they just start describing what's there. So that's the remote viewing protocol. That shifted into just writing a 8-digit number, a random 8-digit number, and then writing down what you want the remote viewer to view, but then only giving the viewer the number. If you remember that from class, that's basically it. I mean, that's the remote viewing protocol. And that turned out to work very well. At that time, they had just regular natural psychics working it. They didn't have a methodology like you learned in the class. That methodology came later. So the earlier psychics in the program they would just get the number, and they would just use their own internal methodology that they created for themselves to just sketch out and write down what was there. Later on, it was Hal Puthoff and Ingo Swann who created the CRV, controlled remote viewing methodology, where really basically you just, they from their own experience, as well as taking from like Renee Warcollier, they strung together a bunch of psychic methodologies that they thought would work together in order to get good information. And that's how the CRV style methodology was created. But with remote viewing, really the protocol, the big thing is to remain blind and to receive the 8-digit number and just work whatever methodology you know from there, because you don't need to necessarily use, I know I'm killing myself here, I teach it, but you don't necessarily need to use a remote viewing methodology like CRV in order to remote view.
I agree. And then too, can you speak into the healing part of that? Because you went and we actually did, I think, 2 different tasks on different people. And that was the part that freaked me out even more. And I don't know if it's because as a doctor, I've studied anatomy and physiology and biology and all the things, but I've seen it actually even be better at figuring that out. You know, you had a guy that came up and we were supposed to just like look at him and be specific about what was going on with him. And my husband and I were there, and it was like left toe, right lung, you know, cough, phlegm, like, you know, whatever. I mean, it was very, very specific. You know, it was like left knee injury from whatever grade. But I was like, oh my God. He got up there after and he was like, so is anyone getting anything? And then I was like, you know?
Right. I remember.
I just like stepped out. I'm like, okay, well, I got, you know, baby toe on the right foot and also left knee. And he was like, yep, broke toe, yep, soccer injury, yep, you know, little cough thing. We got some, you know, I was like, oh my God, like, what?
How does that work? Yeah, so that's what we do that too. We'll do remote healing. We'll do remote diagnosis like what you did, for entertainment purposes only, of course, where we will scan the body on paper, right? Like you all did. Scan the body and basically figure out what's going on. And then if we need to go deeper, then we'll use, you know, anatomy charts in those locations of the body that feel like something might be going on in order to isolate things. And then once we've done that, we will do remote healing if it's needed or if the subject wants it. And I think you did that. I think you all did that. And the way that works, the way that we do it is that, so we all have ideas about how somebody should be healed, right? It's kind of like, it could interfere, right? Because it might be their karma, they're a lesson, something they need to learn that caused whatever malady they've got. And it might not be in their best interest or our best interest to heal them in a way that we think that they need to be healed. So what we'll do is we will remote view first the energy that is most supportive for them for whatever situation they're in. So we'll remote view that energy. We'll feel it. It always feels fantastic. There's variations in it from person to person, because not everybody needs that same energy. And so we'll begin to feel that. We'll describe it. We'll draw it on paper. We'll begin to kind of embody it ourselves. And then we will have on another piece of paper this just a drawing, just an outline of the subject that we're working on with all of their maladies pointed out and whatnot. And then we will take that energy that we felt that they can most use and just start drawing it into them on paper. You know, I mean, it's kind of like voodoo in a sense, but it's not, right? I mean, it's just energy transference, and you're using these items as just focal points in order to transfer it. You can do it with them right in front of you, you know, if you want. but we do it that way because typically it's, they're remote because it's remote healing. And that energy flows into them and they usually feel this difference. They feel a difference. Now, whether it heals them or not, that's completely up to them and their own journey. But now they have this like supportive energy to go through it, however that needs to go. And you can also use this on environments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I had developed this methodology, the environmental healing methodology, where you basically, you remote view an issue with an environment. Let's just say a polluted river, for instance, or it could be anything in the environment, things that humans have like just messed up. So you start to remote view what's the problem, what's going on. Then you remote view what the healed state looks like. So once you remote view those two things, you get this sort of feeling and understanding of what the healed state is and the energy around the healed state up against the toxic state. And it's like remote healing with people. You just start moving that energy into an environment. And we've done that a number of times in locations. And what we've found is that typically what happens, this is causation versus correlation. And we can't really point to, oh yeah, we did this. But what we found is that communities, people start coming together out of the blue to just start cleaning things up, or regulations will be imposed on the situation in order to stop it from happening. And so it really works. It brings this energy to it, and people respond to it on this subconscious level where they start looking at it and they go, how can we fix this? And of course there can always be these other probably potentially miraculous healings that happen as well. But it's the power of consciousness. It's the power of the human mind, which is unbounded, that we can literally do anything when we put our minds to it. And it's simple. It's easy. We just believe that we can, and it can happen.
Well, and that word believe, I love that word because it means to be alive in it.
Right.
And, we've seen science proven with just meditations, global meditations, and how crime can shift and different things. And, as a naturopathic doctor, of course, I'm going to look at, root stuff and whatever, but I do have a lot of unconventional, I guess, more intuitive ways of helping people with frequency and scans. And, I think I've been doing this all along, not just as a minister and being in service, but also as a doctor, of like kind of just walking in, someone come in or calling, and it's like, oh, I just kind of already know where this is going. Right. Whether that's a natural gift or whether it's been over the years of training and all these other things. But I actually have some technology that's on this iPad where you can actually scan someone, diagnose, and you can send the energy back to, you get a customized energy packet of what's required for the person to best get them. And you can do it remote. And we've seen a ton of testimonies that way. And this is all done with frequency, like real frequency. Right. And people are always like, yeah, but not always, but there are a few people who have come back and go, well, we don't understand. Like, how can that happen remote just from a computer sending this to me across the state or across the city or across the world, even to Australia or UK or whatever. And I want to just go like, we can do it with our mind. So why couldn't we do it with a computer? It's like, right. But it goes back to what you said with consciousness is, on this, even on the Schumann, we have our biofield, our physical biofield, and then the earth actually has its biofield. So we're all connected, whether you like it or not. We're all in this together, and we all have our cellular signature code within that biofield. And you can lock in to those things. You can lock into objects. You can lock in, and there's so much more that we can do. So I just appreciated, that part of the teaching for me. And you mentioned something just now, because you said something about us. Are you, when you're moving out of some of the things that after 9/11, you were going into seeing of what kind of terrorist things could be coming up? Are you talking about, so you actually like went into the future to see things kind of, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so with remote viewing, you can look into the future, but when we first started doing that, I was thinking, I was naive. I was a bit naive about it. I thought that, okay, if we remote viewed something in the future, then it's going to happen, right? It's written in stone kind of thing. I hadn't played with that too much up until that point. But when we remote viewed these things, so we were asked to look at it basically maybe every other week or so. And we would remote view a situation. For instance, I think it started out with a stadium sporting event with some kind of, I think it was, if I recall correctly, it was either bio or chemical. I think it was a chemical attack on a stadium that was, I think it was airplanes at first. It's all in my book. I can't remember the exact sequence now. But so when we first looked at that, I'm like, okay, so this is going to happen. We gave them the information. And then we look at it again 2 weeks later, and it changed. It shifted to now biological, right? Or a combination of those two. And it was coming from inside the stadium. And so every single time we looked at it, even without them requesting, it shifted, it changed.
Yep.
It kept morphing in the future until finally the whole scenario of a stadium being attacked was gone. Like it wasn't even there anymore. So what that was telling me was, number one, hopefully they were acting to some degree, and they had intelligence from other sources that told them things, and they were able to block these things off. But on the other side of that, it kind of like raised this question of, and this feeling that the future is not completely solid. It's not completely set.
Yeah, probability, right? That's why Looking Glass isn't working, right?
Right, exactly. And so, we started to look into the double slit experiment in physics, exactly. And how
observation, changing by observation, right?
Right. And so just the act of observing the future events, especially with remote viewers, it'll change them. It will change them because, and I'll tell you this. So what happened was later on, this wasn't actually that long ago, I was asked to do some counterterror. And there was a request. And the request, okay, the way we task remote viewers is with a question. And when it comes to future events, like what we were looking at, describe the next terrorist attack by such and such group on US soil, right? It's open-ended, there's no date, you don't necessarily know when it's gonna happen, right? That's normally how we task it, right? Get all the information, we isolate the location, it's gonna happen. So there was a request to put an addendum on the tasking, and it was without affecting any event, right? Without affecting any event, describe the next terrorist attack on US soil.
Wow.
Okay, now when you have a tasking that you send to remote viewers asking them to describe a terrorist attack, you're gonna get lots of bad things going on, guns, bombs, whatever. You're gonna get bad stuff going on. That's gonna come through the data big time. But when we put that in front of it to not affect any event, all the viewers did was describe like a guy on a horse in the desert.
Wow.
Right? Okay, so the viewers know subconsciously that when they go to view it, they are going to affect the event. And so in part, what was probably happening is that every time we viewed it, our consciousness is placed on this. And like in the double slit experiment, the observer will, change the outcome of the event. It's going to create more instability. You don't know which direction it's going to go. So it's a really fascinating area. It's a really fascinating thing to to figure out, because this is just not, the whole realm of what we do is outside of the third dimensional construct of our bodies, and we operate in this broader multiverse. I mean, that's literally where I am day in and day out, is this multiverse, as opposed to in my body, you know. The only time I'm really here is when I'm having to eat or do chores or something like that, you know. Otherwise, like, to me, the world is this expansive multiverse, and that's just what I live in on a day-to-day basis, you know. Yeah, it's interesting, and I've been in it over 20 years, so it's really developed into this wholly different perception that other people have, that people just don't have. Completely changed me in an interesting way. Yeah.
Well, tell me two things before we close out here. Who is the ideal candidate to take your course? Because you have a course coming up, and like I said, it's online. You don't have to go in a plane. You don't have to spend all kinds of money on travel or food or rent a car or get in a hotel like we all did.
Right.
Who's your number one candidate for this? And then also, we'll do that first, and then I'll ask you the next one.
You know, it's anybody really. I mean, so my take on this. So we, as individuals, every single one of us is completely responsible for knowing what reality truly is, knowing the truth of situations. And I think this is extremely important in what we're facing today. You know, we have news media that basically lies, right? Just across the board constantly. Mm-hmm. And we have been taken to this place where we don't know how to discern, you know, even if there's a pretty face there giving you information all tied up in a nice little package, we take that as being the truth, as opposed to our own internal gut check on it. And so remote viewing is extremely important for people to begin to learn how to utilize within the self, so that this stuff can't happen anymore. We have to stop this from happening. So it's anybody, it's everybody, even longtime psychics. I have already some, I think, people in the class that are working psychics. So it doesn't matter who it is.
Okay, and second question, you mentioned that because you've been in this so long and you've been practicing and obviously working as this full time, and for those people who do take the class and or practice, you said that it actually changed your filter of how you look at everything else, because there's physical and chemical changes, but also kind of the way your filter on how you look at things. How does that change, like in your experience and what you've seen yourself and what others?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so one thing about remote viewing is that it is in part kind of like a spiritual practice, because what you do in a remote viewing session is you're in the process of constantly letting go of your ideas about something in order to really feel and be with what's there. And in a deep spiritual practice, like sitting on a cushion at the Zen Center, for me, for instance, it was the same thing. It's letting go of yourself, letting go of the ideas of who you think you are. So that's like on this broad scale, and remote viewing kind of trains you how to do that. So it is also this thing about remote viewing that it's not remote, because what's happening is that you're going inside of yourself, and it's not something outside of you. It's something that you're feeling around inside of you to understand. And so that makes it you. And it shows you and gives you an experience of oneness, because you wouldn't be able to perceive it if it wasn't you. And this is really important, I think, for the practice of it. It flips it into this, out of this sort of like military intelligence operational thing on spying and nonsense like that, and into this process of self-discovery, which is really what the most important thing is, not psychic functioning. That's normal. We all have that. It is about the journey inwards. So there's that, but it also opens you up to the multiverse, to other, there's gazillions of beings all around me right now. They're all around you too. They've always been here. It opens you up to this world. It opens you up to these other dimensions that are just sandwiched here right next to us that you can begin to perceive. So, you know, I don't know ultimately if that's all physiological, right? But I do know that it's the expansion of consciousness, the expansion of awareness, going inside to perceive everything that's going on, you know? So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, you signed my book when I brought it to you, and you actually wrote in there, remote viewing is the way to know thyself.
Yeah.
And I took that to heart. And, you know, when we can get into like, well, he did this, or she did this, or they're doing this, or whatever,
Right.
There's a guy named Robert Stevenson who always reminds me there is no them.
Yeah.
And I like that you have that same kind of understanding as everybody's us. And we can lock into those, I say coordinates, and not really specific, but when we go inward and we can, and not just stuff, but nature, the wall, you know, that's how people can walk through walls and walk on water and do things, you know, bilocate, transportation, you know, all those things. This is like what we should be doing on a regular. And for me, this class helped me tap into the more intuitive side of me, going inside of me and figuring out me and learning me, remembering me.
Right.
So I just appreciate you and Brooke and you guys' work and all the things that you guys have done to bring this as an opportunity, and to make it available for as many people as we can, especially right now with everything that's going on. Because this, I'm almost 50, and I have not been alive in a time where I've needed to remember myself more than ever, with not just the personal things that are happening, but the way the earth is shifting right now.
Right.
For all of us, because we are not going to be able to change things and get things done without us individually changing on the inside out. It's all an inside job, and that requires remembering source code and clearing out whatever needs to be cleared out, and working within and doing a little bit of work for us.
Exactly.
So how can everyone get in touch with you? I'm going to send links to your book, to your website, to the class, but, you know, I'm sure you have social media kind of stuff, and, you know, what's the name of your website? How can people find you?
I'm on Facebook, Right Hemispheric Remote Viewing. I have a series on YouTube called 180 Seconds, where I try to cram remote viewing projects into 180 seconds, which is kind of challenging, but it's fun. So you can find me on YouTube as well, Right Hemispheric, and righthemispheric.com. That's my website. And the class starts, I have a class coming up June 4th, and it's going to be a month-long class. It's going to be a heavy-duty class. It should be pretty fun for everybody. Lots of work. Yeah.
Awesome. And you guys, I'm going to send out the links to that too, so you have it, and also the links to your book, because this is an awesome read. It really goes into a lot of the background, and also just the how-tos, and anyway. So tell Brooke hello for me, and Brian says hi. And again, hi,
Brian.
Yeah, just thank you again for everything that you're doing for all of the planet and the planets. And
well, thank you too. Jeez.
Yeah. I hope to see you in real life very soon. Yes, I hope to see you guys again soon. Yeah. And stay secure, have fun, and for everybody who's watching, you know, definitely connect with him. You can also go to my website, swiftfire.org. That's where you can find me. I have all of my social media stuff there, my books and resources, and my YouTube links. And I hope to see you guys in some future interviews. We have several interviews lined up. And I know you may be interested in some of the past ones that we've done too, that's on the website and on YouTube. So I'm so happy to be out of Facebook jail. I was in Facebook jail for 30 days for telling the truth. And I just got released today. So I feel like a free lady for a minute. But yeah, that's the thing too. It's like everyone is so dependent on, you know, the internet and the phones and, you know, all the stuff. And I've been telling people for a couple decades, like, there may be a day when we don't have access to these things, and we need to know this stuff on the inside. And you mentioned your phone.
The real internet.
Yeah,
it is not what we have on our phones and the computer. It's telepathy. And that's one thing that I've been working on, is telepathy, because remote viewing is all part of this, that we can connect that way and know everything and be able to speak to individuals. We practice this. We do this on a regular basis. And I think one of the next things that I'm probably going to be going into with teaching is our telepathy classes, the real internet.
Yeah, that's like that whole, when you're like, oh, I need to call so-and-so, you pick up your phone and they just texted you and you're like, I was just texting you. Or I know you mentioned your phone died and you had to get a new phone, and you may never get a new phone.
Exactly.
But
I don't know if
with all this stuff, you know, this is the time for us to, I lived through Katrina and some pretty crazy things, and it was like, thank God I had that knowing. Otherwise we wouldn't know places to go and where to get things, and you know, if our parents were okay. And it gave us a lot of peace and a mind in several situations where I went back and gone, okay, what's the answer? The answer is here. And I'd be right. I'd be like, thank you, God. So yes. Anyway, thanks again. We'll see you guys somewhere on the road. Definitely check out all of John's stuff and jump in. This is such an awesome opportunity. I don't partner with people unless I put my stamp and referral on this. And this guy is awesome. So you guys connect with him, and I will see you guys soon. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye, John. Thank you.
Thanks.